I'm telling you, your grocery bill will be like almost in half. Produce, not so great sometimes, but your other basics, definitely get them there. Anyway, bring your reusable bags, because I see friends there all the time, and I embarrassingly have like an armful of stuff. We'll be dropping my like protein bars, but Tiffany calls it the Aldi shuffle, because you're just like, ooh, like how much can I balance? Anyways,
this is just increasingly becoming a life tips show.
Yeah.
For people.
Like, here, you live in Nashville. Here's some suggestions.
Bring your reusables.
Yeah.
Don't do the shuffle.
Yeah. Don't be caught shuffling.
Original pace. Got a new plan for good life and won't be the same old same. Place I've been don't fit right, though I tried every way I can. When it all works out, I'm gonna get my mind right again. But it ain't them old south windows.
This is Nashville Demystified. I am Alex Steed. Nashville Demystified is a show in which I get to know this city better by talking with the folks who live, work, agitate, and make art here. Today, we talk with the wonderful Erin Rae. But first, I need to tell you that Nashville Demystified is made possible by Knack Factory, a video content production house with offices and production facilities here in the city. If you are in the market, oh, there's a dog. Oh, there's a dog again. She's sneezing now. If you are in the market for commercial video production, or you know someone who is, tell them about Knack Factory. Nashville Demystified is also made possible by We Own This Town, a collection of podcasts produced by Nashvillians. This is the first show that's aired since We Own This Town was selected as an editor's pick for Best Podcast Network in the Nashville Scene's annual Best Of issue. I'm so proud to have been a part of this team, or to be a part of this team. It's not even past tense, it's present tense. Thanks to everyone who said kind words since. There's actually some people on Twitter who suggest that the awards were rigged, which is funny to me. That would happen. I mean, who knows? Stranger things have happened, but we're an editor's pick. Democracy didn't even have a piece of this. Just a guy or a lady or a person at the Nashville scene thought we were worth focusing on. We weren't even in the categories. I couldn't have won in the categories because in the ballots for the Best Of Nashville Scene thing, they basically advertised their own podcast above the entry for podcast, which I thought was a bold move, but we got selected nonetheless. I think that's great. And oh my God, today someone recognized my voice from the podcast. A person who I was giving money to because I was buying a thing from them. They heard my voice and they said, Nashville Demystified, Alex. And I don't even know what the hell's happening anymore, if we're being honest. I have no idea what's happening. So Erin Rae is an absolute delight, and I'm grateful to her for coming on the show and talking about her upbringing in the Nashville area, her life, her career, her insights on where to get the best deals on antiques, and how to establish boundaries as a musician. This conversation's great. I really just like Erin a lot, and her music is fantastic. Her voice is phenomenal. She makes interesting stuff, and she's sort of, we talk about this here, but she's in the scene here among just a great deal of incredible musicians who are you know, it's a weird border cusp thing. It's like a lot of different genres happening at once, you know, touched by country, touched by pop, touched by psych, just really, really phenomenal stuff. And Erin had just gotten back from a short bit on the road when we talked. I met her a few months ago before Americana Fest. We talked here about the Carpenters Tribute Show she hosted and organized at the 5 Spot, which was a part of an Americana Fest showcase, which was just an incredible evening that featured so many favorite Nashville musicians, from Tristan to Lily Hyatt to Nicole Atkins to Rachel Bayman. Just, it's almost cliche to say that it was a truly magical evening, but it was a truly magical evening trademark. That's what it was. It was phenomenal. And we talk about that. We talk about that here too, about how, just like making stuff as a musician isn't just about being a musician. It's about living a creative life. And we cover that here. Oh, we also talk about the mall. So you're in for a treat. But first, I should ask you to follow and subscribe wherever you can. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and we're still on Facebook, even though Zuck is garbage, Gas Lady garbage. Facebook is the Ray Pruitt of social media channels. If you don't know what that means, it's high time you revisit the original 90210, my friends. Anyway, we're still on Facebook for some reason. So please like and do all the things, write us a review. I hear that's helpful. Ezra Klein asks people to do it in his podcast, so it must be important. All right, I think that's enough from me. Like sometimes I talk way more, but this interview is substantial. So let's just dive in. Without further ado, Erin Rae. You are you're a rare breed in that for various reasons. But you,
thank you. Please go on.
You are a musician here who has roots here. Mm-hmm. Like you go back.
Yeah.
Like, what are your first memories of like this being a place that sort of defined you, and how did it create who you are?
Oh, that's a cool question. I don't know. I still identify I feel very like, I love East Nashville, and I've lived here for like 8 years, I guess now, but grew up in Bellevue, and before that, Jackson, Tennessee, until like age 11. And so like Tennessee to me, and like Nashville, pre-new Nashville, I guess feels very like, it's a very hard thing to like describe, I guess, but there's like a little bit more of a grittiness to it. It's like a warmth and a grittiness. Yeah. Where things are like, I don't know, like all the buildings that were like built in like the 40s and 50s and 60s. Like my high school was built in the 50s, and like, I don't know. So a lot of Tennessee to me, I guess, kind of feels older. So there's like a feeling that I don't really quite know how to articulate.
What was your childhood here like?
It was, we lived in the suburbs in Bellevue, just like on the west side of Nashville, past Belmead. And we didn't really spend very much time coming into downtown Nashville or anything. We hung out. When my parents worked during the summers, we would hang out at the Bellevue Community Center, which is like Nashville offers it's like free childcare essentially during the summers. So we just hung out there and went to the library a lot, and like went to the park all the time, and the Bellevue Mall, which is now not there. It's like a whole different development. My sister was like definitely a mall rat, and we just kind of hung out in the neighborhood and made up games and entertained ourselves, played in the woods and stuff.
Do your parents have music in them?
Yeah.
Do they like, what was their proximity to what was going on in the city, or what was going on here at that time? I
think my parents were good at always finding like the other creative people. Like when we lived in Jackson, they found like creative friends, and my dad had a friend named Willie X, and then we had the Raines family that hosted house shows and stuff. And then we moved here, the Lancasters. I think like the year we moved here, Troy and Annette. Troy was a session guitar player in Music Row, and we went to their house. They had 2 kids around the same ages as me and my sister, and so we went to their house for holidays. And like part of the holiday hang would just be to like swap songs and stuff, and the parents would sing together after dinner. and stuff like that. But as far as like, we were aware that music was happening, but I didn't really understand like to what level and to like how different it was to have like musical parents in your household and then have like music be the career of some people in town.
Right. And I guess if you're here, like you don't look at people who have, or maybe I'm making an assumption, but like you don't see people who have a career in music necessarily as outsiders, because that's a thing that people here do.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if you like, a lot of friends from Maine visited this week, and like they were just
cool.
fascinated to know, you know, that like people in the room with them probably had like, you know, a contract or were probably spent the majority of their year on the road, and that's like a outlying thing to them. But here, I guess, like how does that shape you to know there are people out in your immediate backyard who are doing this for work?
I think I didn't really understand it more until I like started doing it more, and I still am learning about that, obviously. I don't know. It just seemed very cosmic that like to be like to come from Jackson, where we were a musical family, but we were like not that wasn't like a commonplace thing for there to just, you know, and then to come here and it was like, oh, everybody is a musician here. And like there are a lot of talented people here, you know? And then my parents both like, our family like spent a lot of time in the recovery community over like just my whole life, you know, like 12-step of different kinds. So there's also a lot of creative people in that world. So it was kind of like, it was like this interesting crossover of like feeling connected to a lot of different people and not necessarily connecting based on like, oh, like you're famous, or oh, like you're a successful, like you work at a label or you work for Gibson Guitars or something, you know, like, right. I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, I think it seems to me like one of the most interesting differences between here and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Is that like your backyard is full of people who are doing things that anywhere else in the country it looks like impossible or unattainable.
Yeah.
And I imagine that consciously or unconsciously has an imprint on people who decide to pursue it. Right.
Yeah.
It's not like again, like if you want to do this from Maine, you have to invent a whole scenario in which it seems possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is super interesting.
Can we back up super quickly? And it's a total non sequitur, but your sister was a mall rat?
Yeah.
What was the mall?
The Bellevue Mall.
How is it different than what is happening there now?
They tore it down.
So that's very different.
So now it's gone. It was vacant for like a number of years. There was just like a Sears. Well, it was really, really funny because when we first moved to Nashville from Jackson, the mall, Old Hickory Mall in Jackson, did not have we were so deprived that we didn't have Hollister or Limited 2
right.
or Abercrombie and Fitch. We didn't have any of that. And so when we moved here, there were some of those stores in the Bellevue Mall, and some of them were in other malls, but there was a Limited 2. I remember that, and a Gap. And so when we first moved here in 2001, it was like, you know, it was like a happening place. But then like slowly by the time I was leaving high school, the mall was closing. And like the last few years, like slowly stores had like shut down, and it was just getting really weird over there.
Right.
But my sister and her friend Amber, we lived walking distance from the mall. So they would just walk and they would just be gone all day. They'd just be walking around the mall and like just like doing pranks and like just being silly, you know?
Yeah.
So by the end of it, there was only a Sears there, and they were just walking around a vacant mall, essentially.
That's really going to change your perspective
Yeah.
at some level as like
Right.
a young person.
Yeah.
Walking around
Yeah.
the carcass of a mall.
The security guards were like always trying to run them off. They're like 10 or 12. at the latest, you know? So like there could cause minor trouble, but not real trouble, you know? They're just like, but mostly just like probably playing in like made up scenarios, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways. So now it's like, there's like a movie theater and it's like, there's a Panera Bread. They just redeveloped it a couple years ago, I think, but it's so different now.
Yeah.
It's all so different.
I spend a lot of my teens working and hanging out in malls. And
Yeah.
it's like whenever I find like other mall people, I'm like, oh, you know.
Yeah. You know about the mall.
You know
Sunglass
what's
Hut.
going on. I worked at one of the knockoff sunglass carts. I was never cool. Although I was a stock boy at Aldo and got hit on by much older, handsome men all the time.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
never.
an experience.
It was never really my like the demo who I thought I was going to meet
right.
at Aldo, but you know, I'm
Yeah.
narcissistic. I'll take it.
Same. It's obviously same. I'm just kidding.
Obviously, same. Of course. You babysat interesting people. Is that true?
That was when it was really like my mom babysat them. But yeah, when we first moved to town, I don't know. I just remember we went back to my dad's hometown, Caruthersville, Missouri once, like when I was like 13, to visit and his mom. And we went to Sunday school at the church that she went to forever. And the kids in the Sunday school class were like, oh, do you know anybody famous? Like, do you know anyone? And I was just like, I don't think so. I don't think I know anybody famous. And then like a couple hours later, I was like, well, we babysat Johnny Cash's grandson, but we didn't know like, and that's just like how weird it is, I think, like what a small town it is, but also like in my like kid brain as I would grow to start pursuing music and stuff, I would connect these little dots of being like, it's like everybody's connected in this town, you know?
Yeah.
So that was wild. But yeah, we used to babysit him when I was like 12 and 13.
And then go back to Missouri and let the people know.
Yeah, I just had to tell him. No, I didn't even get, that's the thing. That's the only time anyone asked me, being from Nashville, if I knew anyone famous, probably ever. And I didn't even remember like to tell him. I was like, man.
Do you feel yourself like, what is your relationship to Nashville now? Like, what do you feel like you have to like represent Nashville? Like, do you feel protective of it? Like, how do you feel about the city now?
I do feel protective of it. There was like a period where I felt grief about how fast it was changing, but that's also like just me as a person, like sentimentally. Like for example, when we moved from Jackson, like a few years later, I went back and it was like vacant. Like the owners had like bought it and then they moved elsewhere and just nobody moved in. And I like wrote a letter to the house and like thanked it for the memories. You know what I mean? That kind of vibe. So
the house that made me.
Yes. Yes. Miranda. And so when it like started rapidly changing so much, I also felt like I was like, it was like a feeling of being afraid of being left behind or something. It was like a weird thing. 'Cause like, which is not, it's just, that's just an interesting thing to be like, that's the feeling that I had. But it, like the city, I don't know, cities grow and change. And like, I'm also growing and changing and being part of it. But I think I really care about like the history of Nashville. Like I think, and that's why I think like your podcast is so cool, just to like get to dive into little pockets and little avenues of stories and stuff from this town. I think there's like buildings that it makes me really sad if they like sit vacant for a long time, and I'm like, is that going to get torn down too? You know?
Right.
There's one in particular that I'm like personally trying to like prevent that from happening on Gallatin, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Is it like, I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
But is it like a commercial building, or are you looking
It's like
at
it's a little commercial building. And I found the people that own it, and it was like left to them in a living will or a living trust or something. And I reached out to them and they called back. So, but when I called them back, their voicemail's not set up. So
Of course.
But it was a very sweet message. It was like an older gentleman. And he was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I'm just getting to you." I wrote them a letter too and put it in there. Put it in their mailbox, which hopefully that's not too creepy. But it was it was a nice letter. It wasn't like, "Hey," I don't know. I think it was as normal as a cold reach out about property could be, probably.
Are those the only 2 letters you've written to people who own buildings that you have feelings about?
Yeah, one letter to one building, and then I guess so far.
Yeah, there's
so
time.
Far, yeah.
Life is full of dialogues with buildings and their owners.
So we'll see. But I do believe that, I don't know, if, a little bit of, magic energy stuff, maybe. If it's like meant to be or whatnot.
There's like
I'm
a lot
open
of,
to that possibility.
There's a lot of buildings on Gallatin I'd like to make into a shop or make into something.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's rich in.
Yeah.
And it's interesting hearing that in this case, there are these people who it was sort of like, part of an unintentional transaction. And I imagine that's probably a lot of what's happening with these buildings is like people own things they don't even necessarily know about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw this tweet from Lily Hyatt the other day, and that's part of the reason why I was asking the defensiveness question is that, it seems like she was saying something about like people who like talk shit about Nashville, especially in the music industry.
Yeah.
And feeling like protective of how cool of a town this is.
Yeah.
What is the perception of Nashville from people who are in music from outside of here? Like, I don't really know what people think about this town.
I don't really know either. I think people, the typical conversation is like, "Oh, that's a good place to be for what you're doing." That's kind of like how it is. It's like,
yep.
See you later. Cool. Yeah. Or I guess like if someone has moved here and then moved away or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it's perceived as like a more of a pop country place or something. But it's usually like people that aren't in the music world necessarily.
Right.
But I will say, occasionally you'll have somebody be like, "Oh yeah, I couldn't do Nashville. Like I got to stay out of there." And I think probably because there is so much industry here, that kind of can cloud, especially if you're like a sensitive being, or like a sensitive creative person, then it's easy to feel that pressure or imagine it. Sorry, my stomach is growling. You're probably picking it up on the microphone. Sorry. I think it's probably easy to feel that and feel like I think it just depends on the person. It's like what people are hoping to do with creative endeavors. If they want to take it up the industry like flagpole kind of thing, or if they want to like just create a scene in their town and have it be not so inundated with like a business or financial success or whatever.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what Nashville looks like from the outside to people who are not me.
Right. Yeah, it's hard I haven't had any like explicit like, "Oh, Nashville sucks" or whatever, or like, I guess, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, I think it's still like, it seems like it's still like re-establishing what its outward personality is to people looking in from like, I mean, to me, it's evident because like I follow all of this stuff from from within, and I did previously as well, a little bit from without. But like it's like I don't know who I like think about when I think about Nashville, whereas in like the 80s and the 90s, you knew exactly who you thought about, and like and like now, just because of the nature of like how music works and things aren't like everything isn't a blockbuster all the time.
Yeah,
there's like a lot more sort of like smaller to medium sized like thriving people and scenes. Which in a lot of ways is good, but it makes it sort of difficult to go like, oh, like that's
like a Nashville thing.
Who and what Nashville
well,
is.
like,
although I guess like Jason Isbell is a pretty, that guy.
Yeah.
Gillian Welch, who we talked about before. These are people, I guess.
Like Nashville peeps. I think
otherworldly Nashville beings.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's weird too, like the way that music is released. It doesn't necessarily, maybe I don't know this for a fact, but I like now, like for example, like Mason Ramsey, the Yodel kid, he's on the Florida Georgia Line label here. So like his record label is here, but I wouldn't necessarily think of him as like a Nashville guy.
Right.
I think of him as like the Walmart guy from wherever he's from.
I don't think of Mason Ramsey as the Nashville guy.
Yeah.
Is he 10 years old? Like, I don't know. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, Nashville kid.
I just want to see him just at the 5 spot.
Yeah, totally. Maybe that's not a great reference.
No, it's great. It is great. Yeah.
But you know, like, and Margot is a Nashville person. Whoa.
Oh,
sorry, making all kinds of noise.
You're right. And you know, I think your Third Man is a face that people like look at and see as like a Nashville establishment.
Yeah, and maybe like Dan Auerbach.
Oh yeah.
Kiss me on the forehead. I wanted to return to him the love that he was offering. Sadly, I could not pretend. On and on, the record spins. Those songs we used to sing back then. The way
that's the other thing that I find. You know, I'm not saying anything new to anyone who's listening who's here, but like, you know, like Kroger networking.
Oh yeah. Have you heard?
Which for anyone listening who is not familiar, it's like,
hey, how was your tour? Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm just working on a new record.
In the produce aisle of the local grocery store.
Yeah.
It's like, I go to Kroger every day.
Right. Yeah.
See people.
And there's like two sides of it. I just like Facebook or whatever just popped up, just showed me a memory of like last year or 2 years ago, me and Lily Hyatt and Beckham and Carrie all ran into each other at Kroger, and we had all been gone for a while, and it was like this really tender, like we were like, hey, like we all like, we took a picture like under aisle 4, and we were just like, oh, like, you know, so there is like the good side of
bathed in fluorescent light.
Yes, we were just like so happy to see each other. But Ron Gallo, have you heard his EP? There's an EP that he made like maybe 2 years ago, but there's one song called the East Nashville Kroger Conversation.
Oh my God.
And it's really just a recording of that. And it's like, I'll send it to you after this.
Fantastic.
Cause there is like, I feel like there's a line where it's like, okay, like, yes, like it's very comical. Like that is such a common, I mean, we have you have like a very similar conversation all the time, but it's also like, that's what people know to ask when they see you, or or that's what I know to ask other people, like, oh, how are you? But it does become a cliche thing, but it still is like the questions are, you know, often genuine.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there is a networking or the Aldi. Aldi I saw my friend Tiffany one day there, and I never go into Aldi with bags, like with reusable bags. I always forget. And I don't get a cart, just stubbornly, or I like don't have a quarter to get a cart. Have you been to Aldi?
No.
Yeah,
Although
I was noticing
you're making it sound great.
Well,
there's a quarter to get a cart.
Yeah. The price difference is unreal.
Sure.
You get a lot of organic products, like mostly everything is organic. But it just is like blank brand. It's not like whatever. But like EL fudge rounds, they're the same cookie, but it's just like 99 cents because you're not paying for the little elf on there. And you can get some name brand stuff. Anyways, this is just a life tip. I'm telling you, your grocery bill will be like almost in half. Produce, not so great sometimes, but your other basics, definitely get them there. Anyway, bring your reusable bags because I see friends there all the time, and I embarrassingly have like an armful of stuff. We'll be dropping my like protein bars, but Tiffany calls it the Aldi shuffle because you're just like, ooh, like how much can I balance? Anyways.
This is just increasingly becoming a life tips show. Yeah. For people.
Like here, you live in Nashville. Here's some suggestions.
Bring your reusables.
Yeah.
Don't do the shuffle.
Yeah. Don't be caught shuffling.
I'm curious to know what your suggestions are for a great day in the city. Ooh. Like where people should go. I mean, it doesn't have to be a real day because I know things are open at different times.
Yeah.
But like you're back in the city, like what are you stoked to do and where are you excited to go?
I will make the same loop on 8th Avenue and go to the antique stores over there. Oof. Like 8th Avenue Antiques and Pre to Post Modern and 8th and Rose Coffee Shop. And I'll just make that loop again and again. Like
8th Avenue Antiques, super side note, but I just want to make sure you tell people.
Yeah. Has
a collection of like 70s like gay porn zines.
Really?
Yeah. Like that seems to be replenished. Like there are like new ones that come in. Like so there's like an extensive like sort of like erotica thing there or whatever.
Okay.
But like those like classic Tom of Finland like big dude stuff, like physique magazines and stuff.
Is that in? There's like the section where there's like art books.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that booth?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I always am like breezing through looking for the sweet. Like, I'm the clothes. I'm in the clothes zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you are.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
The sort of sized person.
Yes.
Who can go to an antique shop and find clothes that fit their body.
Almost.
I am 6'5".
Yeah.
No one gets rid of their clothes. So you go there in Pre to Post Modern, which is another great spot.
If you need furniture, great prices.
Yeah.
It's price to sell. Price to sell to the young, fashionable, stylish person. They like you can get a coffee table or like a couch for like a couple $100, like a rad couch.
Right on.
It sells quick, but there's new stuff every day. So I recommend that.
Fantastic. And you're speaking.
I'm stuck on. I get stuck on the antiques loop.
Oh my God! So,
yeah.
I mean, I am not like that's my weekend.
Yeah.
Is antiquing in the 100-mile radius.
I didn't know the magic of estate sales. I went one day over in East Nashville. I was like on my way home from work, and I went down. It's Mansfield. It's like the street that faces off of Gallatin. It faces like it pours into Dino's. It's across the street. Yeah. But there's like this big bungalow that was having an estate sale, and it was this man. He was a blind music teacher forever that he had passed away, but he had like 1 million different recording devices, and like he had a Braille typewriter. It was like I was like, oh man, I signed up for the estate sale mailing list.
Wait, what is there's an estate sale mailing list?
I think there's a couple of them.
Oh my God. This is why I'm
like
I'm
adding
doing
a list.
this podcast.
Yeah. This is the content we're here for.
This is it. Like, this is great. I mean, it's also funny too, because like when people who are looking for like background about you, like Google you or whatever, they're going to find some very pragmatic tips for getting
Very good
getting
tips.
antiques. Okay, what if you needed to get like a weekend breakfast? Where would that happen?
I love Marche. Have you been there?
I have not. No.
It's in 5 Points. It's on the corner.
Oh yes, I have. I'm so sorry.
With the big windows.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very like it feels French in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is.
And there's a breakfast scene. I think it is. I think it's like
it's kind of
like
French.
new, like quote new French.
Frenchish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, love it there. That's my fave hang. It's easier to get there, like find a table and stuff on the weekdays, like no problem.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's not too long to wait on the weekend either. I love Cafe Rose, also newer joint over on Porter Road. I'm trying to think. Marche is usually where I go, where I will like meet people or take people if they're from out of town or whatever.
Right on.
Yeah, coffee is very, very strong.
Oh, that's
so
good
be
to know.
careful.
Be good.
Another tip.
Take it easy.
I don't know what they're doing, if they're like brewing it overnight at like a low temperature or what, but it's like Dose's coffee is very strong, but this is in a different way. Dose's coffee is like, you've experienced that.
Oh, of course.
Surely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they give you the little mugs at Dose and then they just keep refilling
And
it.
they give you 45 cups of coffee.
Yeah, and then you have like a total panic attack in the afternoon if you're me or anyone I know. But Marche is different because it like seems like just normal coffee, but the same thing will happen. I had like a business meeting there, loosely a business meeting, but it was just like a catch up. And by the end of it, we were both like freaking out. Yeah. So, anyways.
Marche. All
Marche.
right, cool.
Marche. I also highly recommend the Country Music Hall of Fame
For just to go. It's amazing.
if you're here.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Their special exhibits are fascinating. The whole thing is
So cool. I need to go. I think there's been a Keith Whitley exhibit. I don't know if it's closed.
It's pretty good.
It's already closed.
It's like a wall.
Yeah.
Of a lot of stuff in which this is not my primary takeaway because Keith Whitley is very important, but someone at the Country Music Hall of Fame in the biography and signs section screwed up Keith's birth year, and someone had to go through
Write it down.
rewrite it. There's an inconsistent biographical reportage about Keith Whitley's age, but it's all very touching regardless. With Bill Monroe's smashed mandolin in the background and Keith Whitley's like, it's
amazing. My favorite, recently, the last time I went there, it was when Emmylou Harris's exhibit had just gone up, and it was very moving to me to see that whole. And then this was last year. This was a year ago, but I got on another Emmylou Harris kick and just listened to Red Dirt Girl probably 100 times since then. It's like the best song ever.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the museum is fabulous.
Yeah.
As far as like comprehensive exhibits go.
Yeah.
That connect today's popular culture to its history.
Right.
I think it's probably one of the best that I can. I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
Are issues that academics would like to take up, but I am not that.
Yeah. No, I think it could, because it's just so there's so much integrity in the museum, I think. With what? Because I don't know, it could pander a lot more to the tourist, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It could, but it does, it really, the staples are there of the roots of country music are there. And then occasionally you'll have the new person doing their Taylor Swift or Casey Musgraves. It's cool.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
I came a couple years ago with with friends and children, and there was like the Taylor Swift sort of education exhibit, and
nice.
that went over in a big way.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
They were like, cool, there's something to be entertained by while you know, look at pictures of men from the 1920s.
Right. That's, yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Do you, so you are, you know, you have a particular like professional, like social scene around you here. Like there are people that you know and came up with, and you all, you know, do you consider yourself like in a class of a particular collection of people, or how does that work? Like what's it like coming up with a bunch of people doing different things?
I think I was thinking about this recently because there's like another like layer. Everything kind of bleeds into everything else, like all the artists and stuff from different like age groups necessarily, I guess, or that's what I'm trying to say. Like the heyday of the 5 spot in my mind, like and I hung out there way less than a lot of these people, but like Margot, Little Bandit, Kelsey Walden, Los Colonis, like the Lonely H. It was like this, and Margot's old band, Buffalo Clover, and like this whole kind of like ecosystem around 5 spot in my mind. Derek Hoke, $2 Tuesday, like that to me. When I started hanging out there, it was like 2012 probably when I started to get connected to all of them. And so it's been like, I was just thinking recently, like there's a whole another like generation seems like a strong word because it's not that we're that much older. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of on the younger end maybe of that group, but it's like different eras, I guess, instead of classes per se.
Yeah, era is a better, like sort of better.
But yeah, there's like the whole scene of like Liz Cooper and Nightingale, and like it's just cool to see different people kind of like inhabit those spaces, like the New Faces Night and then the basement, and then like now there's D's, and you know, kind of where they're keeping like the Nashville show scene going.
Yeah.
As like some of us start to like leave town more and be traveling more and all of that. Am I making this?
No. It makes sense.
Sentence?
I know. It makes total sense. But I guess like, is it a situation where, you know, talking about like the eras and sort of as everyone like grows and sort of goes in the different directions that they're going in, you know, both like geographically and by way of career. Yeah. Like is the tendency for like that ecosystem to as it rises, like everyone rises, or like how does that end up working out? Like you must be stoked to see like friends of yours from particular times, like achieve for, you know, different levels of recognition and appreciation.
Yeah. I do think it kind of like when one person begins to succeed, like more people do.
Yeah. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
As President Kennedy said.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah. And I think I was talking about this earlier to somebody, but, you know, I think seeing like Margot do so well and seeing the world kind of open up for her, like when she signed to Third Man, and then a couple weeks later she played Saturday Night Live. Mm-hmm. Or like that's what in my memory is what it was like. I know that I was like singing with her around town a bunch, and our friend Luke Schneider was playing steel, and I kind of remember him talking about like, I'm going to show your record, or show the record to Ben Swank. And I remember him because he's worked at Grimey's. He would be a cool person to talk to.
Ben Swank?
No, Luke Schneider.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. No, you already talked to Ben Swank.
I was like, I should talk to him. Luke Schneider. All right, cool.
Yeah. So I remember like that kind of like, and then they went and made the record in Memphis, and then they got signed to Third Man, and like, you know, but at that point it had been like many, many years in the making for her, like 10 years of being in this town and playing as Buffalo Clover, and then starting to do Margot and the Price Tags. But yeah, so when that like happened and we all like saw her be on Saturday Night Live and like just things going really well, it kind of like opened up a new level of like what's possible for people doing Americana music. You know, or like from Nashville. It just kind of like connected in my mind anyways. Like I was just like, whoa. And also it helped in large part because of the nature of like who she is and how inclusive she was in the process of her like career moving forward. Like she took different Nashville bands on tour. Like we went on tour for a few shows, and she just took like she got to sing with John Prine at the Ryman one night, and she invited me and Darren Bradbury to go with her and Jeremy, and she, you know, just like things like that where it's like that year when during Americana Fest she did this panel at the Country Music Hall of Fame it was like the Wednesday, the starting day of Americana Fest, and she invited. It was like her life in Nashville. It was kind of like it was like kind of just like a presentation of Margot's like creative life. And so like her family was there, and then she invited me and Aaron Lee Tashian and Darren Bradbury and Lily Hyatt to come like sing with her or like sing one of our own songs during her like showcase of her,
right.
You know? And because of that, people came to my show. I think that was my first Americana Fest or second one, but so many people came to my show that week because of her. And then like she shared her spotlight, I don't know, just created awareness around like the four of us that did that show with her, you know, and kind of like for like, cause there's a lot of British people that come over for Americana Fest. And I feel like a lot of them took notice of us because of that, you know. And that trickled down to like Lily Hyatt and me, and we were all like kind of coming up in our own little ways, but yeah.
I think that's the thing that I notice and really appreciate from the outside of someone who doesn't play music, but like seeing there seems to be like some support of each other where it's like if there's like any gaining of recognition, that there seems to be from what I've seen and been in proximity to, like a sharing of that spotlight and trying to like utilize that in a way that's like actually beneficial,
right,
to people.
Yeah,
in a way you don't always necessarily hear about when people get spotlight.
Yeah, because you know, it can be like there. I don't know. Well, there can be a view of, as with anything, you know, wealth of any kind can be like, well, you can view it with like the scarcity lens, like I got to hang on to this, or like, wow, this is amazing that we can all participate in this. And there is like cosmically plenty to go around kind of thing, you know, like there's plenty. And I think what is cool about this time in creativity and music and is like the trajectory is there's so many different ways to like to build a creative life or like career, and still like the same, like you can self-release things and build your own community around it, and then like it grows over time, or you can like go the pop country route and like, or you can write for other people, or you can, I don't know. And I think, you know, other people might view that as a naivete. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, no, you did
Naivete.
Naivete.
I don't know, like Marissa Moss, we did this panel for Americana Fest talking about Americana shaping the experience of playing music and shows and touring for women in music. And I kind of mentioned that belief of that there's like plenty to go around kind of thing. And she was like, well, there are a limited number of headlining spots though, and like limited number of plays currently on country radio. And of course that's not like the world that I'm in.
Right.
So that's not how I I just don't think about that on a daily basis other than like reading her articles and being like believing in, you know, her work so much and being really grateful for that. And knowing people that do experience that. But I just have never perceived it as like I'm fighting for this spot. It just was cool to me to grow up surrounded by people to grow up musically around people that are inspiring to me, you know? And then I think I will say that like I have experienced jealousy, like in the last couple years and like, or just like kind of learning where I need to have boundaries, maybe where I didn't see that I didn't have boundaries around like, or see that some of these things that have come naturally to me, and are precious to me. Like I didn't, like career wise, you know, that it's not just something that I need to just like give away, like kind of like a self-worth thing. Just being like, no, this is like, you did work for this. Yeah. Like, you don't need to like, be like, oh yeah, like this is possible. It's like, no, you grew up here, and so there's some things that feel so serendipitous to me that it kind of was like, I grew up here, you know, had a musical family, also like have just had such great luck with people being very supportive of me in my creative path that it has been work, but it's been, but I haven't viewed it really that way until I haven't viewed it like, no, I worked so hard for this. Like, you know, all this shit is mine or something like that. But like, I think I've been very just like too open in some ways. Yeah. And it's been good for me to kind of like, and that's, you know, professionally and personally, just being like, okay, I'm going to create a little container around myself and like be choosier, and not in a bad way, but just in a healthy way, I think.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the oppositional reaction to the same scenario is so fascinating, and like a weird form of like modern schizophrenia is like the idea that it's like, you know, I'll see literally like what I think are kids. They're not kids, but I'll see people who are, you know, 10 years younger than me get something faster and quicker than I did at that time. And immediately like, you don't deserve, like in my head, I don't really feel this way. Right. But in my head, there's that piece, there's the scarcity piece that's like, why you? Yeah. And then if I get anything, I'm like, oh, I don't deserve, like, I shouldn't have this. Like, this is, and it's like, who are those two battling people that live inside my head, you know? And even though like in your heart you're like, oh, I'm glad that everything is
like I believe
happening.
I don't believe that I'm so powerful that I can control someone else's like what their path is supposed to be, nor do I truly believe that I know what's like how things are supposed to go, you know? So if like it's just, but that's also, it's just such a common story of like someone coming to town and immediately things like snapping into place for them, and other people feeling like, oh, well, you know, took me 10 years, you know, whatever. It's like that. I don't know. I kind of like, I guess just really became, what am I trying to say? Unfortunately became aware of like how capable I am of being jealous.
Of course.
And like, you know, cause it's much more like pleasant to be like, oh yeah, like, and I do believe that there is room for everyone, and I believe that like there should be some respect for just what people have created for themselves over time, which is something that I've learned on both sides. Like a friend of mine kind of communicating to me that like it bothered her that I like wanted to use her band to play some shows. And I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. And I have felt jealousy because of that. But I also, because of because of not having like a career where I can salary people or have people on retainer, you know, but there is like I haven't given voice to that feeling of like, no, like there is like a boundary thing. And I just wasn't really aware of that existed until fortunately that was communicated to me.
Yeah.
And it kind of let me know I was like stepping on toes, you know? And because of that, it's like, it just establishes like another level of like communication and friendship with this person who let me know that. You know, I was like, oh shit. Like I felt really bad because this was somebody that I really respected and looked up to. But now, you know, we're still able to like be friends because I know that, and I'm not going to just keep recreating that scenario. I don't know why I got off on that tangent.
No, I think that's a super helpful. That's as helpful a tangent as telling people about the antique store in 8th,
right.
which it really is though, is that like I find that the thing that anyone learns through age and experience is that flexibility in the face of learning new things and
right.
hearing people's boundaries and you know, understanding yourself and your own tendencies better, et cetera.
Yeah.
Like flexibility and an embrace of that rather than like what my immediate reptilian instinct is, which is to like recoil, melt and die,
right.
you know, because someone exposed to me in the world that I was wrong
right.
about a thing.
And I totally recoiled.
Oh God, of course.
For like at least of a minimum of 24 hours.
Oh God,
but then, you know, it really allowed me to give voice to my own feelings
right.
of, you know, similar experiences on the flip side, you
right.
know,
and your own boundaries
and just being like, oh yeah, this is difficult to me. And I know, you know, it's not the same. And so it's weird because it's like, I want the people that I play with to always feel free to like make money and like, but I think there's like a closeness thing. There's like, well, I don't know. I was going to say it's kind of like dating, but it's like two. That's not really right.
Right. No, just because it looks good on paper doesn't mean that it's not sort of like maybe transgressing in ways that can be messy.
Yeah.
I think that like that's the thing that like I would try to convey as much as possible to like anyone who's like coming to whatever town or whatever scene and trying to do something, is it's like be genuinely interested in people who are not yourself, and like don't ride your ego as hard as humanly possible to the point where like you can't hear or understand like what other people's needs and ideas are.
Yeah.
You know, it'll save you maybe, you know, 5 years of
right.
heartache.
Yeah.
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 Do you, you know, the I'd seen you now. I mean, it was at Americana Fest, which feels like it was like 25 years ago. But I saw you there. And you did a Carpenter's homage, I guess, at the 5 spot.
Yes.
Yes. And that to me is like one of the things I've heard you say a couple of times is that it's like, you know, like you're looking to like live a creative life, and like that show for me, like when I was there, I was like, oh, I feel good for this person who pulled this thing off. And I felt that way because it was like, I mean, like the musicianship was fantastic, obviously. The presentation was great. Like the vibe was great. It was such like a great like utilization of a room. Like there were like 4 million people in a
psycho
like 20 capacity person.
Right.
And then just like the sort of like the aesthetic, the costumes, like everything about that it was like a production. Like it was like sort of pulled off a production, and like that to me was like, you know, I mean, I know that we all put our, you know, everyone who's doing this puts so much into their album and their touring or whatever. But like, as far as just like creating like a scene and a special night, like that was such a cool thing.
Thanks.
Where were you at on putting that together?
Well, I had so much help with that. Jordan Lenning being the band leader, he charted everything for the musicians being amazing and like being down to learn 32 songs.
Oh, it was 30. I was going to say like 30 songs.
It was a lot of
was.
songs. I didn't feel as bad. Like, I felt bad in hindsight. I was like, holy shit. Like, I was like, is something amiss in my brain that I just like was like, sure, we're just going to keep adding songs because I wanted to include as many people as possible. But then I went to the 1969 tribute, and that was 45 songs. So I took a little sigh of relief. I still felt bad, but yeah, just them being the musicians that they are. Ellen Angelico, John Radford, Daniel Pingree, Kevin Black, and who else? Thayer Serrano. But yeah, Jordan Lenning charting everything, like, made that possible. And just like, for not very much money, jumping on board with that idea and committing to like wearing pastels and polyester in like the middle of the summer heat. And then it was like, I had this idea, and I've never done anything like that. I've never like gotten to like I've never fully realized that, just like an event, you know, but I'd been to several because other people in town have done tribute shows and kind of, you know, but I told Joshua Shoemaker, he's a great filmmaker in town, that I was like, hey, I just kind of want to do like a VHS project, like have a projector on the back wall so that people in the back, because I'm sure it might be hard to see if you're up front because, you know, the stage is so low, like, so people can see everybody. And he was like, what if I just like get a bunch of old TVs? And he just like took it upon himself to like fully realize this vision. And we've known each other for a while, so I think he kind of gets like where I'm coming from aesthetically sometimes. But yeah, it all really came down to like the people that were involved, like fully invested in the idea. And I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was like, what stood out to me, and I think like where people can be sort of dismissive for tribute nights because it's, you know, there's like a sacrifice of original music, there's people sort of, but like what felt really great about that night in particular is the melding or meshing of people performing whatever song that they had performed, like in sort of splicing it like beautifully with their personality, and then it feeling like it inhabited another dimension a little bit was really that's
great. Amazing. One of my favorites. Well, I love everybody that's performed. It was like it was so exciting to me. I was like since I initially brought the idea to my manager, I was like envisioning Tristan singing Wichita Lineman.
Oh my God,
and I was like,
crazy.
And it did not disappoint. It just like, I just had, you know, that yearning in my heart for months. And then she sang it and I was like, oh, I knew it was going to be perfect. And then Carl Anderson singing Karen Dalton, Something's on Your Mind. He blew me away.
Yeah, it was wild.
He blew me away with that. I just think more and more highly of him, like, as time goes on. I've loved his songs for a long time, but he's cool. He surprised me on that one.
What would Nicole Atkins do?
She did Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore by Scott Walker.
Her, like, hand choreography with that, which is such a ridiculous thing to notice in a song, but I was like,
so necessary, though.
God, like her navigation of space. That was fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
But I think, like, as far as, I mean, I think that to me, like, that's like an interesting, like, to me, I think because I'm pretty like scene focused and specific usually anyway, is that like, that's what stood out to me was that it was like it was no one success. Like, I mean, talk about like synergy. Like, it was like a bunch of like individual successes, like a broader vision success, in a cohesion of people who, like, I am assuming, like, know, like, and appreciate each other.
Yeah.
And it showed.
Yeah. It was really exciting, like, to just see everybody. It was like a reunion kind of thing to like, I don't know, because Nashville did used to be smaller, and like all of our musical lives, you know, at different stages have been growing over time, like our touring schedules and stuff, and like whether we had a label or a team or not, like that has grown so much since all of us met each other for each person. Like it's taken different shapes and stuff. And so like, I don't know, just our like friendships or whatever. It's kind of like we all love each other from afar most of the time now. And so it was just so cool to be like, we're all back here at the 5 spot. Like so it was kind of perfect. It was like very, very snug in there, but it was cool.
Yeah. It's a beautiful reunion.
Yeah.
What, I guess, what are your, to the person who's listening in and getting equal amounts, you know, pragmatic and broader tips, like what are your departing pieces of wisdom?
Oh, there's one thing that always like comes back to me, which was actually an exercise that a therapist gave me a long time ago, which was like, when I first was meeting her, she was like having me write this timeline down of my life. And she was like, okay, now list who your angels have been in your life. Like these different people that have been supportive of you, like, you know, just in different areas, like teachers or like neighbors or friends, parents, or like whoever it is that kind of like nurture and support your path, whatever shape that takes, you know. I don't know. And it's like, I guess so my advice or whatever would be like that thing of like, keep that in my mind has been very helpful to me, to like find the people that are my teachers or my mentors, and then like kind of keep them with me in whatever way that I can. And it's just things that they've said over time, or like, cause that's the thing that I'm like, that's the stuff that is like, to me is like divine intervention, or like a cosmic, like a gift or whatever. Or it's like these people that came in times where I was like, you know, like when I started taking voice lessons or whatever, or like I had this teacher in elementary school that ended up being with me from like 1st through 4th grade. Like, 'cause she moved up at this Montessori school every year. She was like moving up. So and she was just like this steady, like safe and encouraging person who like mirrored back to me what my potential was, or whatever, if that makes sense. And then with the voice teacher, it's like in hindsight, I'm like, I was 18, probably full of myself, just totally in a daydream about what music would be, and not knowing anything, but also very shy and quiet. And so like, why did she believe that I could do this? You know what I mean? Or why did she reflect that back to me and allow me to discover it on my own? Like, she didn't have to do that. And she could have just like been too tired, or like given me like the basics or whatever. And so just kind of like going back and being like, okay, who are these people? It's like, those are signs that I'm supported on this path in my mind.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That's a hell of a piece of parting advice.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Cheers.
Came here 'cause I said I would. Ain't been honest, my words no good. Guitar in my neck, I shouldn't have done you wrong.
All right, everybody, that is it from Nashville Demystified. Thank you so much, Erin, for being a part of this. It was just wonderful, wonderful to talk with you. Thank you to Jesse LaFontaine for being our sound engineer. He is a wonderful person, and he is making some great things happen here on this show. Thank you to Tim Burns for custom illustrations for this show. And thank you for listening. You right there who's listening right now. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon, I'm sure. Take good care.
get your attention. If your pride don't drive you right out of town, and you don't wanna keep your head down, well, I guess you better